Hello and welcome. You are now looking at the website platform Blog Talk Radio. And Blog Talk Radio has a number of unique features that will help you to be able to either create a podcast or to be able to do a live broadcast with audio only. Now, the platform boasts several kinds of opportunities for you to be able to monetize your podcast. And even if you did nothing else other than to broadcast and to set up your podcast, you would be able to generate an income from the activity that you'll be doing on this site. So in this course, we'll actually walk through getting started with Blog Talk Radio and then setting up a broadcast and podcast and then connecting it to iTunes so that you can have a podcast there also. What's good about Blog Talk Radio is that you can choose to either broadcast live, as you see some of the podcasts here, or you can have a traditional podcast that people can download. And we'll also talk about repurposing your content for sites like YouTube and other social networks. So we will now get started with setting up your podcast and getting started with Blog Talk Radio. And in a very short period of time, you can be podcasting and broadcasting audio. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to take a look at the different options for you when you choose to sign up with Blog Talk Radio. So when you come to the site, you'll see that there is a sign up button, and you'll want to click that button, and we're going to talk about the different options. The first three options are the most traditional paid options, $39, $99, and $249, depending on when you're watching this video. But if you scroll down, you're going to see some other options. First, you're going to see what is called an upload-only plan, and this will allow you to record your audio and upload it to the Blog Talk Radio platform. Now, you are going to be limited in the number of hours that you are going to be able to have stored on Blog Talk Radio if you choose this plan. Now, the other option is for you to be able to use the broadcast facilities of Blog Talk Radio. You can actually use this free, and what you're doing is you're going to be creating content. Now, Blog Talk Radio will actually store 30 hours of this particular kind of content, but this account is free, and it will allow you to test the platform until you can actually get a sense for whether or not you're going to use it, and then you can actually upgrade to one of the paid options where you're going to have unlimited storage. And as you can see here, whether you're using the large, whether you're using the medium, whether you're using the small, all of those options give you unlimited storage of your podcast content. Now, the difference again between the free and light levels is that you will be able to broadcast live. In other words, you'll be able to bring people on, you'll be able to take phone calls, and you'll be able to chat with people in real time. Now, you can't necessarily do that when you upload a recording. So you'll be actually producing your podcast and uploading it, but you will not be doing a live broadcast. Now, if you want to do a traditional radio show, you can use the free version. Again, if you just want to do a recorded version, you can use the light version. Now, here is another consideration for the platform when you get started. The first three paid levels all have the first free month, so that if you wanted to start with the smallest month, you can actually test out the unlimited storage. All of your podcasts will be and remain connected to iTunes, and you can actually stop the service before that first payment is made until you're ready to start paying on a regular basis. So this is a way for you to be able to test the unlimited level at its most inexpensive and then move up as you see fit. Now, one other consideration to make is that when you actually use one of the paid versions where you are going live, you are going to be able to schedule your podcast in what is considered to be prime time, and that's going to be between 7 and 10 Eastern Standard Time. Now, this is only a consideration if you're considering a live broadcast. If you're considering a recorded broadcast, then the live prime time scheduling won't necessarily be of interest to you. So once you've decided which plan is going to be suitable to the goals that you want to accomplish with your live broadcast or your recorded podcast, choose the level, and then click continue. Now, there are going to be some other considerations that you'll want to think about when you're signing up. The first will be the email that you're going to be using. Now, this email is actually going to be your notification email, so you'll want to have one that you're actually getting immediate notification and you'll be able to see it right away. The other is your custom Blog Talk Radio URL. Now, you will be able to go back and change this if you need to. This will not be a final URL, but you'll want to do one that's going to be consistent with your brand. And then, of course, you'll choose a show title and a description. Now, you will be using some kind of credit card. You will not be using PayPal in order to do this. And once you actually use this credit card, you will not be able to use it in the Blog Talk Radio system again to use a free trial. So this will be the only time you'll be able to use this card with a free trial, so you'll want to choose it carefully. Okay, so once you've chosen your level and you've placed your card information in, you can go ahead and click the continue button, and then you will be set up initially for Blog Talk Radio. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Hello and welcome. You are looking at Amazon.com, and in particular, you are looking at the Kindle ebook section. And we're starting our discussion here on how you can find guests for your podcast, because there are a couple of practical implications that you'll want to think about. Now, Amazon authors tend to want to be interviewed because they're trying to get publicity for their book, and they are self-published. Now, one thing that you can do is you can do a search within Kindle Unlimited. And the reason that you'll want to go looking at Kindle Unlimited is because once you've paid a $10 fee, you can read an unlimited number of Kindle ebooks within this system. And you'll be able to get the books quickly and read them and find authors that are going to be willing to be interviewed. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to click Kindle Unlimited eligible, and then you'll want to write in your subject. For example, if we were going to write in internet marketing, you can then start with a limited search where you can start to look for people who are going to be more motivated to be interviewed rather than people who have larger names and larger followings. This can be a great way of being able to not only get the book, to read it, and to start your conversation by saying, "I've read your book." And this is a great introduction to someone that you want to interview. Now, depending on what your purpose is, you can also use LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn will give you a professional view of people who are going to be connected to you. And obviously, in LinkedIn, you'll want to start with the people with whom you're already connected with. And if you are structuring your LinkedIn profile to be with people that you want to find as customers or people within your niche, this can be a great place for you to find additional people that are going to want to be interviewed and are going to fly below the radar. You can also use the source HARO, which is Help a Reporter Out. Now, Help a Reporter Out will allow you as a journalist to find people who actually do want to be interviewed. They've actually registered on the site HARO in order to be interviewed as an expert. And so simply signing up as a journalist and making sure that you are going to have a site that's going to look credible, HARO will require that your website be within 1 million in the Alexa rating. But if you have a site that has a relative amount of traffic, you'll be able to use HARO as a source for people to interview. In the same way, you can use the site Profnet.com. Profnet.com, again, has a site of professionals who have registered to be interviewed. And these are not necessarily going to be business owners. These are probably going to be people who are looking to enhance their professionalism. And they're going to want to appear on a blog or in a magazine article. But they can be great sources for interviews. And finally, in your local area, you can also use any local association by talking to the head of the association within your niche to find out who would be a great source or an expert to interview so that you'll have continual flow of good guests. Finally, there is a site that's going to be a little more hit or miss depending on what your goals are. You can register with the site. It's a paid site called Contact Any Celebrity. Now, this is going to require a fee, And if you have a need for someone who's going to be a little more famous, you can at least get in touch with them. Now, this is not going to guarantee that you are going to actually be able to land them as an interview, but registering on the site will help you to be able to get in touch with them. And in some cases, the information has been proven to be dated in some cases, but in other cases, the information is accurate and you will actually be able to get in touch with certain celebrities. So to go from the specific to the general, you'll want to start again with Amazon and then move up through contact any celebrity. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Now, when you enter your Blog Talk Radio account, you're going to come into a basic analytics screen. But before we talk about analytics, we want to talk about the left side menu. Now, when you are ready to begin your broadcast or your podcast, you're going to click this Create button. If you want to see episodes that you have done in the past, you'll click this button. If you want to take a look at your statistics or you want to see how your podcast is doing, you'll click this link. If you want to know how much revenue that your podcast is generating inside of the Blog Talk Radio network, you can click this link. If you want to get access to your audio clips, which is going to be where you are going to be able to place your bumper music or your show music, and we'll talk about that in a later video. And if you actually want to go to the studio where you'll be producing your live content, you'll click this link. So what we're going to do first in this video is we are going to actually click this Create link. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose which kind of broadcast you are actually going to do. If you're going to be uploading a recording, a podcast recording, you can actually do that by clicking this button. If you're going to do a live broadcast, you can actually click this button. So what you're going to do here is you're going to write the title of your episode. Now, the title of your episode should be SEO optimized, meaning that it should be something that you know people will want to click on when they see it in the search engines, and you'll want to make sure that you are using keywords along with that title. You'll want to do the same thing in your pitch. Now, the pitch is actually going to appear when people see information about the particular show that you are going to show them. So if you want to make something enticing, a message as to what it's going to be about, something that's going to be benefit driven, you can actually write that pitch here in the short pitch area. Now, in your detailed description, what you're going to want to do is you'll want to make sure that you have keyword optimized information. Once again, this information will be helpful when you are attempting to get search engine rankings for your show. And if you have any particular visibility constraints that you'll want to put in here, you'll want to determine that. In most cases, you're going to use public and it'll be for all people. Now, your tags, once again, you'll want to write in those words that you think people will be searching for, and that will indicate what your show is about. Now, when people go searching in Blog Talk Radio for a show to listen to, your tags will help them to be able to find your podcast if it is what they are interested in. So now, once you have written all of those factors in and you have decided which kind of broadcast you're going to do, all you'll need to do then is click continue. Now, in this particular case, what we have done is we've clicked the live broadcast button. And you're going to notice some controls here at the top. We can choose to go live right now, or we can choose to go live at a scheduled time. We can choose the duration, and again, depending on which level you have purchased, you'll be able to determine how long your show is going to be. Now, one thing that Blog Talk Radio will do for you is that it will tell you about signal strength. And this is an indication as to how easy your show is going to be able to find based on your title, based on your pitch, and based on your description. So what you want to do is you want to try to move this number up if you can, based on the amount of information that you use. Now, if you want to and you decide, well, what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to upload a recorded episode instead. All you need to do from this screen, if you change your mind, is to click this upload link. Now, once you actually choose a time, you'll notice that you will get a permalink. And this permalink, once again, will be the show's URL that will either help you to be ranked in search engines or will be memorable for your clients. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to take note of here is that you can actually set this episode to be promoted on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we'll talk about that in another video, but you can decide at the point at which you are creating an episode. Okay, now in the next video, we'll talk about uploading an episode to Blog Talk Radio. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to talk about what you can say to get people onto your podcast or your show. And we're going to start with a line, and the subject line is going to be request for interview. And in most cases, this can get you an audience with people who would at least be willing to open your message, or this will be something that a virtual assistant or an assistant will pass on to the actual person that you're looking to interview. Now, the next line here says that I have just read your book or bought your product. And what you want to do in the very first line is you want to establish a connection that isn't just that you want to extract something from them. You want to talk to them because you have had contact with them. You find them interesting and you have bought something of theirs or you have experienced them in some way. So while you don't have to say that you bought their book, you can say something like you've purchased their product. You can say something like you have seen their show or you've heard them. You want to establish a connection that you have interacted with them in some way, even though you haven't met them. You then want to say that you do something on a regular basis. So this isn't going to be something that is going to be a fly-by-night. This is going to be a way for you to establish some credibility while being brief. So you want to say, I do a weekly, a daily, a monthly podcast. I do something on a regular basis, and I want you to be a part of it. You then want to tell them who the audience is, and you want to try to give them a sense that they are going to match up with your audience, or in some cases you might want to let them know that this is going to be a new audience for them. So make sure that you tell them who the audience to your podcast is going to be, and you don't have to tell them anything that is false. This is a case where you want to be upfront, because if they don't feel comfortable talking to your audience, you don't necessarily want them as a guest in any case. You want to tell them something specific that you want them to talk about. And so you'll say that you want to have them talk to something specific and how it impacts something specific. So again, you're giving them an idea that they're going to be able to talk to their area of expertise. You then want to set them at ease about how long it's going to be. Most people feel uneasy about an hour and talking for an hour, but they tend to feel good about being able to be asked questions for 30 minutes. If you want to go longer, you can spell that out to them, but give them some sense that you know that if they don't feel like they want to talk for an hour, they don't have to. The next line is a place for you to, again, establish your credibility. Let them hear something that you have done in the past. And it's a great thing to do to actually get a couple of shows under your belt before you start looking for interviews. So try to get people who are in your niche, who you know, who are professional, who would be willing to be interviewed, and then use them as an example of the kind of interview that you do. In the next section, we tell the interview that here's what past interviewees have done and that they have benefited in some way. So again, this is no place for you to tell them anything that is you want to tell them that they're going to benefit in some way and then prove it to them. In the next line, you're going to give them a link to your show. So if they want to hear everything, right? If they want to find all of your shows, let them see them. Again, they need to be comfortable that this is going to be a good fit. As you draw to a close, you want to start letting them know this is how you want to contact with them. You want to give them some flexibility, but then you just don't want to open up your schedule at any time. If you do interviews on a certain day, you want to try to get them on that particular day, even if you have to wait for them. So if you do interviews on Tuesday, if you record them on that day, then try to get the person on a Tuesday, even if they've got to push it out. Now, if they're just not available on Tuesday, then you're willing then to move them to another day. And the last line is just a standard practice. You want to let them know that, hey, you really do want them on your show, and if you've got to make an accommodation, you're willing to make it. So those are some tips on how you can get people in a written context in order to be part of your show. Of course, you're going to send it by email. In some cases, you might send it by regular letter. In some cases, you might send a fax, but you want to try to touch base with them in any way that you can, getting this email to someone on their staff or to their publicist or to someone who knows that you are serious about having them on your show. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to discuss uploading an episode to your Blog Talk Radio account. Now you're going to notice that you have a link here that is for broadcasting. And this is the opposite of the previous video where we actually created our title, our pitch, and our description. But now we're in the screen where we're actually going to upload this episode instead of going to use the Blog Talk Radio system to record one. Now there are two ways for you to be able to generate the episode that Blog Talk Radio uses. One is to use an RSS feed, and you can actually get an episode to a particular file, and you can actually place that RSS feed in this space in Blog Talk Radio. Or you can actually select the audio file from your personal computer. Either way, you'll have an episode that you'll be able to use for your podcast. What you're going to notice is that there is a particular time that you're going to be publishing and you're going to be going live. And this is going to, again, be subject to the same constraints that your account does. So if you don't have prime time scheduling with your package, you will have to use one of the times outside of prime time. All of the other considerations are the same in terms of title, pitch, and detailed description, as well as tags, in addition to signal strength and the posting information for your social media. So once you have determined where your file is, all you'll need to do is to click this select a file and then bring it into Blog Talk Radio. And that is how you'll be able to schedule an episode even if it is uploaded and recorded previously in your Blog Talk Radio system. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now inside of OptimizePress, and we're here because there are several page templates that you can use if the case comes where your guest does not have a page ready or something ready to promote. More often than not, that will happen. And in answer to the question, should you pay your guests? Standard industry practice is not to pay your guests. However, you should promote anything that they are doing. And so if you look at this specific template inside of OptimizePress, one of the things that you can very easily do, and you'll see it here, is just change that template. You can put their image there to either promote their book or their product, and then put a button to that actual product. And we'll show you how that looks here in this page. And you'll notice all that we've said here is that once they've made their purchase, contact us at support. Now, the thing that you can do to demonstrate your commitment and your appreciation is that you can add in a bonus if someone actually makes the purchase of their product or their service. In some cases, that guest will have an affiliate program that you can become a part of, and then you can actually promote them all year and promote them even longer. But at minimum, you can set up a quick page, you can send people to that page, and you can incentivize them by going to their page in order to make an actual purchase. So doing these things will say to your guests that you do want them to benefit in some way. Now, all of these things have to be done up front. So you'll want to make sure that you get the link that you're going to put in this buy button before the actual interviews. You don't want to wait till the day of the interview to find out what they want you to promote. Find out when you first get in contact with them or when you're doing your 5-minute setup call. You want to get the sense of what it is that they're going to want people to look at. And if they don't have an opt-in page, you can send them direct to a page where they can purchase their product or service. Now, unless your business model is to get affiliate commissions, you will want to make sure that you push people to what it is that they have going on. The affiliate commission can actually be something that you'll get as a side benefit. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to talk about how you can keep in touch with your guests between the time that you've actually establish a connection, and the time that they actually interview. And you may have noticed in the last script that we talked about that there was a line here that we didn't go into great detail about, that we said, can we do a 5-minute setup call to talk about having you on the show? That 5-minute setup call is really the key to establishing all of the parameters and really securing the exact contact and how you'll be corresponding between the time that you've connected and the time of the actual interview. So with everything that you can possibly do, you want to try to get that person onto the 5-minute setup call. And that should be as close after the connection as possible. You want to have that to be as soon after they say yes, or that they are thinking about it, or that they are favorable toward it. Move them toward the 5-minute setup call. So after the setup call, you want to pick up this second script. And this is going to be a formal email. And if possible, you want to follow up also with a PDF document that they can look at on a mobile device. And you want to follow this pattern. It doesn't have to be exactly this way, but basically you're going to give them some idea of exactly what's going to happen. Now, the only thing that you'll want to take note of here that might be different is your list of sample questions. Now, in some cases, some interviewers have said that they would prefer not to give people exact questions, and that is something that is probably industry practice also. But you do want to give them some idea of what you're going to ask, and you want to give them an idea that this is not going to be a high pressure gotcha interview. So tell them what to expect. So if something is going to happen during the course of the interview, you want to let them know up front that it's going to happen and that they should just keep going as if it is normal. So this connection point, this formal document, is another step in the process. So first thing you're going to do is your 5-minute setup call. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to follow up with this document. Now, in the next video, we're actually going to show you another way that you're going to be able to seal up any holes in your contact with your guest. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now you are now looking at the website for the free downloaded program called Audacity. And Audacity will allow you to record spoken audio from your personal computer and for you to be able to create an MP3 or WAV file, both of which you'll be able to upload to the Blog Talk Radio system. So if you don't have a way of pre-recording audio for your Blog Talk Radio system, you can use the program Audacity. And Audacity is fairly straightforward. When you are ready to start recording, you'll hit the record button and you'll notice there that Audacity is recording the sound of your voice as you talk. When you've completed the audio, you can actually click the stop button. What you'll do then is you'll go to your file command area, and then you'll need to export this file as an MP3 file. So you'll go to the file command, you'll click export audio, and then you will name your MP3 file. But in many cases, you'll want to pre-record a conversation that you're having with another individual for your podcast. And so in order to do that, there are some other options. You can use the downloadable program, free to everyone, called Skype. Skype will allow you to have a conversation with someone online. They can call your Skype number or you can call theirs, and you'll be able to record that conversation. Now, Skype does not have recording software within it, so you'll need to have a third-party program in order to do that. There is a program called Evair, and that will allow you to record Skype. There is also a program called Pamela, and you'll be able to use it in order to record your Skype conversations with other people. Now, another way for you to be able to record your conversations and to produce an MP3 file will be to use a site like freeconferencecall.com, which will allow you to have your conversation with your guest. Okay, so those are the ways that you can produce pre-recorded audio. And with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now that we have gone over the basics of setting up an episode, we want to come into our settings area, and you can reach that settings area by coming to your top menu, then clicking this settings button. And when you click that settings button, that's going to bring you to the screen that we're looking at right now. And one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to determine your cover art. And your cover art is going to appear as a profile image, and it's recommended that you make that cover art 1400 by 1400 pixels. Now, what's significant about this cover art is that you will actually see it when your podcast goes live at iTunes. So this will be the image that will be shown for your podcast. It will also appear when you are sharing your content on social media. So you'll see that cover art up in the right hand corner. You'll actually see it here on the right hand side. Now this is actually blurred out right now, but you're going to click the select button, and then you're going to grab the image from your hard drive. And again, you want to make sure that it is 1400 by 1400 pixels when you create it. And of course, if you need someone to create it for you, you can have this done on a website like Fiverr. Now you're going to write in your contact information. And the contact information is important in that this display name is actually going to be seen on your site. So when you write this in, just note that this name is going to be the one that is going to be associated with your site online when it comes to your Blog Talk Radio account. You're going to have an account email address and then contact phone number. Now, these will not necessarily be important with respect to your customer, but you will be contacted through these means by Blog Talk Radio. And of course, you're going to be able to display some other URLs for your site. You'll be able to display your Twitter account, you'll be able to display your Facebook account, as well as your Google Plus profile, so you'll want to write those in. Next, on the left-hand side menu, you're going to see this link that says Show and Podcast. Now, this is going to be important information. It's not going to be the only place where you'll see it, but this is important information, and it's a good idea to write it down or to put it someplace where you keep your logins and password. And that'll be your host dial-in number, your host PIN, which Blog Talk Radio will ask you for from time to time, and then your host ID. Now, if you have to call in from a phone in order to conduct your show, you will need this information to give to Blog Talk Radio. So again, have it someplace where you're going to be able to access it, especially if you use your mobile device. Now, you're going to write in here a show title. And this show title is going to be the one that's going to appear for you in the search engines, as well as your show description. Now, these two things together, you can use keywords in order to do this, but you may want to brand your show. You're also going to have the opportunity to put a pitch in here. Now that pitch will then be for you to be able to get people enticed by your content. You basically want to summarize what your show is going to be about. You'll have a place to put keywords here, and those keywords are going to be the ones that you want people to search for and find your show. Now, of course, if you can use longer tail keywords and more specific keywords, that's going to be better. But if you have a more general idea of what your show is going to be about, you can write that in the keywords box. And again, you can come back and change these later if you find that the ones that you're using are not working for you. Now, Blog Talk Radio is going to give you the opportunity to determine what your show URL is going to be, and you can actually write in what you think it's going to be. Once again, you can either use a branding name or you can use a name that will be fitting your keywords and will help you to be more findable in search. Now, the last major item inside of your page appearance is going to be that you are going to want to place a profile image. And Blog Talk Radio recommends that you use a 1600 by 400 pixel image. Now, let's take a look at a couple of profile images. Okay, you'll see this banner that's across the top, and you'll see that this is long and then this is very short. So this is the 1600 by 400, and you'll see how your banner is going to appear. Now let's look at another one. Once again, you'll see the profile image. You'll actually see the show image here in this corner in this banner. Now you'll notice the appearance is a little more customized, but you'll see this banner image across the top once again. Now, once again, you'll be able to determine your show category, your visibility, and then the introduction audio we will be talking about in a future video. And this is where you're going to actually be able to put in some introduction and ending music. And you will be able to set that music by default here in your settings area. Now in your notification area, you'll be able to determine how Blog Talk Radio is going to let you know when your show is coming, as well as shows that you follow on the network. And these are all things that you'll need to determine according to your preferences. Now, one other item that you're going to want to take note of is that you are going to be able to connect your social media accounts, in particular Twitter and Facebook. Now, Facebook will be connecting to your personal account, so this will not connect to your group, nor will it connect to your page. This will connect with your Facebook account personally, and this link will actually connect to your Twitter account. So you'll be able to determine these two things in the network, and this will happen automatically along with your show when you determine your social media. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about calling in to your Blog Talk Radio show if you are doing a live broadcast. Now you are inside of the studio right now, and you'll notice that there is a call-in number, which obviously you can use from a telephone, you can use from a mobile device, or you can use from a phone number that you're using on your personal computer. But you will also notice that there is a Skype emblem, and that is because you can actually connect through your Skype account to Blog Talk Radio. That means that you can conduct your Blog Talk Radio show using your Skype account. And typically, using your Skype account, you can produce a clear sound. So using Skype can be to your advantage, but one of the things that you will need to know about that is that if you were to click this, that this is a premium feature. So you will need to be using one of the paid accounts in order to use Skype. This also will allow you to be able to both chat with the people as they call in, as well as connect to your Blog Talk Radio account with one click. Now, if you are away from your personal computer or you are away from your home office, you can always use your mobile device in order to call in, and you can do that using the prompts given to you audibly on your phone. So again, once you determine what kind of account you're going to use in order to start with, just note that you can call in and produce your Blog Talk Radio show using any of the ways, including Skype or telephone. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, you are looking at the service Schedule Once. And Schedule Once is an online application that will go a long way in answering the question, what happens when your guest cancels? Schedule Once is an application that will help you to seal up any holes in your contact process should someone cancel or change their plans. Schedule Once is a paid application, and it does have a 14-day free trial. So you can determine which one will actually fit what it is that you are trying to do. In most cases, the application that is the Plus or the application that is the Professional will fit what it is that you need to do, because you have Google Calendar integration, but if you want Outlook Calendar integration, you may have to go up to the Professional level. But in any case, you have a 14-day free trial, and you can determine which one actually fits your business. Now, Schedule Once will actually help you to determine when your availability is up front, so that when people come to your page, they'll be able to find the right time based on a schedule that you've already set for them. So you won't have to worry about your trying to figure out when you're available and them trying to figure out when they're available. You set the pace by giving them your availability first. And if you have to change your availability for some reason, you can change it according to individual days that you will not be available or that you will be available, even though you have your general calendar already set. You can set up your page so that you have all of the different kinds of interviews that you can do, and you can even set up for someone to get onto your 5-minute setup call. You can brand and individualize the page that your interviewee is going to see so that you can reflect a professional image. And when your interviewee comes to your page, they'll be able to see and select the particular call that they are going to be on, and this will send them a series of emails that they are going to be getting all the way up to 5 minutes before the actual call. And this will actually help you to seal up any contact gaps that you might have with your guest or interviewee. And you also have a very detailed schedule of booking cancellation emails as well as booking reschedule emails, booking request cancellation. And once again, this will really help you and go a long way if your guest has to cancel and they need to change their schedule. So once again, the application is scheduleonce.com. So once again, the online application is scheduleonce.com. It has a free trial, and when you are ready to start booking guests, this is a great service to have. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to talk about what you should do after the call, and we're going to follow a third script. And there are three main functions to what we're about to talk about. First, that you're going to model the behavior that you want your guests to follow, that you're going to give them explicit instructions on what you want them to do, and you're going to give them a document that spells this out. So in the first section of this script, we're going to talk about where they can find the actual broadcast. And you're going to make it very easy for them to share the show on their social media accounts. This is the most important aspect of your being able to have a guest. You want them to invite their following. You want them to share with people far and wide inside of the niche. This will give you the most exposure to your podcast and then get people to like what it is that you're doing. You are also going to give them a brief write-up, and you're going to put it on your site or your social media, and then you're going to model the behavior that you want them to follow. You're going to take that show, you're going to share it with them, and you're going to make sure that they know about it. You can do that through the social media function of tagging. You can make sure that they know that you are doing exactly what you've asked them to do. Third, and this is optional, if you choose to repurpose the content, you are actually giving them another opportunity to share the show. So you are giving them the opportunity to let their following know about the call that you did. And hopefully you will have gone through the process of making them look good and feel good about the interview, that you will have edited out anything that will be controversial. And when they listen to the interview, they will actually want to thank you for the things that you have brought out. But after the call, your number one focus, your number one drive should be that you want them to share the show with their following, and you give them a script and a document that makes it easy. Now, there are online applications that will help you to be able to do this at a click of a button, so that when your guest clicks the link, it will actually share on the various social media sites. This is optional, but you want to make it as easy for them as possible. Give them the words that they can say if they don't have any words of their own. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. You are now looking at the settings tab for Blog Talk Radio, and in particular, we are looking now at the profile section. Now, the first thing that you're going to see is that you can add in cover art. You'll want to make sure that that cover art is going to be 1400 by 1400 pixels. This is important because this will actually be the cover art that will show up for your iTunes podcast when you have actually placed it. It'll also be the image that'll show on your social media when you share your show. So again, you'll want to choose cover art. It's going to be representative across multiple platforms, and it needs to be 1400 by 1400 pixels. Now, this area is blurred out, and you'll see here on the left-hand side that it says first name, last name, and display name. Now, the most important thing is going to be your display name, because this will display in everything that your Blog Talk Radio shows about you. So where you post, where you write things, where you are identified with your station, Blog Talk Radio will use this name in this box. You have a contact email and contact phone, and this will not necessarily matter to your client. They won't see it, but you will be contacted by Blog Talk Radio through these means, as you see here on the left side: email, contact phone. At the bottom half of your profile, you're going to notice that you have a time zone. And this is going to be helpful to you as you track what happens on your show. So you'll want to make sure where you're conducting the show that you have in your correct time zone. You'll also note that you can place in a website, and this is going to be where people can actually find out more about you, and it'll actually appear on your channel information. So where you have in your show, you'll notice that this is blurred out, but you can actually write in a URL that will be clickable to your site. In addition to that, you'll be able to write in your Twitter handle, your Facebook account, and in this particular case, if you have a Facebook account that's associated with a group or page, you can write that in. And you can also write in a Google Plus profile. All this will be identifying information that people can actually use in order to find out more about you. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. You are now looking at The Rise to the Top, and The Rise to the Top is a podcast being done by David Siteman Garland. And the reason that this site is important is that you're looking on the page and you're seeing that his basic message is that he helps to create and sell online courses. And the podcast was really a basis for him being able to do this part of his business. So one of the ways for you to be able to monetize your podcast is to take the content or the content that your listeners are interested in and then turn that into an information product in order to sell from your site. You can also sell access to your content, and we'll actually come back to this question later on in the course as to whether or not you should keep your content free or whether or not you should give it away. In this case, this video podcast, which started back in 2007, is now monetized by people coming to pay to have access to the interviews that Andrew Warner is actually doing. Now, another way to monetize your podcast is to build up the following and then to sell the entire site. And that's what was done with Trader Interviews. The original owner of this site, his name was Tim Berkwin. He actually sold this site to someone else who continued on to do the Trader Interviews. However, this was only after he built the site, sold an information product, and then passed the information on to someone else who took the name and did something different with it. You can use your podcast in order to support your business, and that is the case with Amy Porterfield. She already has an information products business that she sells to digital entrepreneurs. However, she uses her podcast to support her business. So you can actually use your podcast to enhance your presence, to build your credibility, and then to sell more of your products and your services. Another podcaster whose name is John Lee Dumas actually does his podcast free because he works with entrepreneurs. He has come up with different ways in which to monetize the podcast and give those people who are listening the opportunity to participate with him and buy his products and services. Now, another way to monetize your podcast is to partner with some of the people who are going to be your guests. You can actually turn their interview or turn their content into an information product, partner together with them, and then sell it on an affiliate network like JVZoo. And there are similar affiliate networks like Zaxa and Warrior Plus. Now, in some cases, there will not be an available information product from the actual guest, but you can sell a related product by finding one in the ClickBank network. ClickBank has a number of information products across a wide spectrum of niches and subjects, and you can find an information product on just about anything that you want to promote along with the guest that's going to be on your show. You can actually place a link on the page and give people an opportunity to build on what they've learned in your particular podcast. So there are a number of ways in which you can monetize your podcast. The basic function is that you want to build the audience. You want to make sure that your audience is happy, that your audience trusts you, that your audience is looking forward to your information, and that you are constantly growing your audience. Now in the next video, we are going to talk about another monetization method, which is the sponsorship method. And we're going to start by looking at YouTube in particular. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to take a look at the settings area. In particular, we're going to focus on the show and podcast tab. Now at the very top, you'll notice that you have your show summary, and this is good information to keep with you personally in case you have to conduct your show from your mobile device or your cell phone when you are away from your home office. So make sure that you have it someplace that you can get to quickly in case you are running late and you have to conduct your show. You're going to have a place where you can write in your show title. Now this is not an individual show. This is the name of your show's brand. So you can write that title here. You can also write in a description. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is that this show title is going to appear in the search engines. And so you'll want to make sure that your show description is search engine optimized with the right keywords that you want to rank for or to appear for when someone is searching for them. You'll also have a place here for a short pitch. And this is where you are going to summarize the show in a compelling way to get people to look further into what your information is going to be for them. You'll also have a place here for keywords, and this makes your show more findable. So you want to start thinking of the words that if people were to type them in, you'd want them to find your show. So try to put in keywords that you think people would be looking for information about, so that when they conduct a search in certain areas, they will find your link to your show. Now you are going to have the opportunity to write in a show URL. Now this show URL is not going to be written in stone. However, you don't want to make a habit of changing it. So you want to think clearly about what you want your show title to be or your show URL to be. You can either brand it or use a keyword, but do so with something on purpose in mind. You'll also have a place here for the page appearance, and this is where you are going to have a 1600 by 400 pixel image that is going to appear across the banner of your page. Let's take a look at what that's going to look like. So you'll notice here the 1600 by 400 pixel image, and this is what a banner looks like inside of Blog Talk Radio. You'll notice another banner here, and you'll notice another banner across the top here. Now you do not have to choose an image if you don't want to. In fact, you'll notice with this particular podcast that there is no banner across the top, and you'll only see the title. Now what you'll be able to do also is you'll be able to determine which category your show should fall in, as well as, again, you'll need to determine the visibility of your channel, not your individual show. Now in this case, you're going to see something here that says Introduction Audio. We're going to cover that in another video, but this is where you'll choose the default settings for the music that's going to headline your particular show. So you can choose one of the audios that you have uploaded, and then this will be associated with any show that you do where you do not specify a different kind of bumper audio. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Hello and welcome. You are now looking at YouTube.com, and the reason that we are looking at YouTube.com is we want to consider another revenue model. And we are talking specifically about sponsorship, not necessarily AdSense. You could very well put your content on YouTube.com. You can actually use that content in order to earn AdSense revenue so that when people click on links as they listen to your content and watch your videos, then you can actually be paid by Google. However, there's something else inside of your YouTube channel that you'll want to take a look at that will be helpful to you when it comes to sponsorship. You're now looking at the analytics section of a YouTube channel. And the particular interest in this case is going to be the demographics section. And in the demographics section, you will be able to tell who is actually watching your videos and who is staying in them and who is paying attention. This information is going to be very important because this will tell you who would be willing to sponsor your show. Because sponsorship is really about advertising, and they want to be in front of their target customer. So as you begin to pick up on who it is that is listening to your content or watching your video, you will then be able to go to a sponsor to prove to them that you actually have the audience that's going to be interested in what it is that they have to offer. So one thing that you can do is, in placing your content on youtube.com, is getting a sense for who is interested. You can then take that demographic information to a potential sponsor and start looking for matches of people that listen to your show and actually watch your videos. Now, all of this information is going to be different than the actual information that comes from Blog Talk Radio or iTunes, but the demographic information inside of YouTube is more robust than just about any platform, and it'll really give you a more specific picture of who is actually listening and following through on what it is that you're putting before them. Now, you will want to check that information inside of Blog Talk Radio. Now, you do want to check for that information inside of Blog Talk Radio. It may or may not be available for your particular show. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about your settings area, in particular your notifications. Now, you'll notice that you will get to pick an email that will be associated with all of the notifications that Blog Talk Radio is going to do with you. You can also have that same information sent to a mobile device, and you can also have sent to your email address a calendar reminder. And what this will be something that will be clickable so that when you get it in your email, you'll be able to put it in your Outlook or your Google Calendar. Now, you'll also notice that you have reminders here, and you can determine how you can be reminded about shows that you are following, even up to when they will actually occur. You'll also be able to determine when you get notified about shows that you are actually hosting, and then shows that you have set to remind you. And this is set also to individual channels. Now, because Blog Talk Radio is a network in and of itself, that means then that you can actually have notifications sent to you when there is activity. So Blog Talk Radio will give news and updates. Sometimes people will send you a message inside of your channel, maybe about your show or about something that they want to collaborate with you on, or when someone actually decides to follow your show. And you can actually get notification about that. And this can be good because what you can do is you can actually start to develop relationships with other show creators and collaborate with them when you get to know them. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. You were looking at google.com because we are going to want to do thorough research on someone in order to be able to talk to them intelligently during the interview. And this is really how you're going to be able to interview someone that you don't know. And so you'll want to make sure that you are looking at each individual aspect of Google research that will help you to be able to conduct your interview thoroughly. It typically means that you're going to want to get all of the up-to-date news and information using Google News. You'll want to do research on the particular trend or topic using Google Trends. And what this will do is this will give you an idea of what people really are searching for and what they're interested in with respect to the topic that you are going to be talking about during your interview. For scientific studies and academic research, you can use Google Scholar to get some of the most up-to-date information. And this, again, will allow you to converse with your interviewee intelligently. Naturally, you are going to want to search Facebook to see what the current conversation is, and you can do that simply by going to the search bar and writing in your name or your subject matter. Although not nearly as robust, you can also look to twitter.com or Twitter search, and that will give you some idea of what people are talking about using that social media platform. But the most important thing is not only what kind of information you find, is how you use it. And you want to start doing your research as soon as you find out there is going to be a setup call. And you want to finish as much of the research as possible before the setup call. Because what you want to do is you want to talk to your guest about some of the subjects that you think would be interesting. And you want to get a feel for how knowledgeable they're going to be on the actual call. This is almost giving your guest a clue as to what you're going to be talking about, but it will also keep you on the same page in terms of the interests of your audience. So you do want to get as much information as you can. You want to talk to your guest about it on the setup call, and then when the actual interview comes, you will then be able to have a conversation about what you have already understood in your research. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about the Settings tab and the Social Networks area. You're going to notice that Blog Talk Radio will allow you to connect with two different kinds of social networks. You'll be able to connect your Facebook account as well as your Twitter account. Now, when you connect with your Facebook account, you will actually be connecting with your personal profile. So there are certain areas that you are going to be able to connect to. So let's click this button and Blog Talk Radio will actually tell you more about the connection. Now, understanding that Blog Talk Radio will be connecting to your personal profile, you'll want to determine which of these notifications and connections that you actually want, if any. Now, you'll be able to send a status update when you first schedule your show. As you update the status, it'll actually post to your news feed when a show is archived, as well as any actions regarding your channel. And then, of course, if you don't like the way the connection works, you can always disconnect from Facebook altogether. Now, you'll have a similar set of connections with Twitter. Now, once again, Blog Talk Radio will actually tweet for you. Again, if you determine when the show starts, when your show is scheduled, and then you can actually have it do so between 5 minutes and 1 hour before the show actually starts. And you can also have it connect when the show is archived. So once you determine when you'd like Blog Talk Radio to tweet for you, all you'll need to do is click Save Changes. And of course, if you don't like any of those connections, you can actually disconnect from your Twitter account. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we want to talk about some things that you can do to keep an interview interesting. Some of these things you may have heard before, and some of these things you probably have not heard. Now, first and foremost, the interview has to be interesting for the guest also. So not only must you keep your listeners interested, you need to keep your guest interested also. And that means keeping them focused on what it is that they are going to be talking about. That means that you want to do your upfront research and you don't want to surprise your guests with anything. So if you can, once again, we've talked about this before, do as much research as you can and then mention what you like to talk about during your 5-minute setup call. Go in the direction of the 5-minute setup call and don't deviate too far from it. Now, there will be cases where you may have something to come up in conversation. It might be an interesting detour to take, and every interview has a life of its own. And so you might need to take that detour. But basically, though, you don't want to surprise your guests. You want your guest to surprise you. You can control the situation by giving your guests open-ended questions, and this is commonly accepted. You probably have heard this already, that you don't want to give them closed-ended questions because if it's a yes or no question, then they will not be able to expound on anything and they won't be able to keep it interesting. Another thing that's commonly accepted is that people need to tell stories, that they can keep something interesting if they can recall a story. And so you want to guide the conversation in a direction in which you give your guests the opportunity to tell stories in ways that are relevant to your listening audience. One thing that you can do to keep your guest interested is to listen and summarize. So you want to make sure that you capture what they've said exactly the way they meant it, and then give them the opportunity to correct you. Often, a guest will take something in a different direction and remember something that maybe they forgot to actually add in. So this is a great way of getting them interested, keeping them engaged. Now, one thing that Andrew Warner of Mixergy.com says that you can do to keep an interview interesting is to focus on what he calls the one. What does that mean? So we definitely want to encourage our guests to tell stories, But we don't just want to give them the opportunity to tell any story, and even we don't want them to tell any story about the subject matter. What we want to do is we want to try to focus them in on one particular aspect. So we might ask them about one particular day that they recognize something about the subject matter. We might want to talk to them about one particular period where they will have to go into their memory banks and remember something specific that happened. So we're really trying to get them focused on something specific, a one aspect of something that we want them to tell a story about, one particular idea. We want them to go to this one thing and to really expound on that one thing and give our listeners the opportunity to go to that particular point with them. And what this does is this really helps you to keep a conversation from going off the rails. You have probably heard interviews where someone starts telling a story and that story starts to meander off the subject or onto a tangent, but you can keep that conversation on track by getting your guests to focus on one particular aspect of a story that will help you to make. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now inside of the studio of Blog Talk Radio, and we want to discuss uploading audio for your episode. Now, Blog Talk Radio, when you click this link, you'll note that Blog Talk Radio will give you space to put 3 files in so that you will be able to have it for your bumper audio. So the music that plays at the beginning or your introduction, or if you have something professionally made, you can actually upload those files as long as they are WMA, WAV, or MP3, and each can be up to 100 megabytes. You can also have it play automatically when your show starts, and you can do that by clicking this button. So once you have the files that you are going to upload, all you'll do is you'll grab them from your hard drive and then click upload. Now, as is the case with any network, you are going to want to make sure that you are using royalty-free music for the sake of the network. And you do have an agreement that you have stated that you'll follow. If you have any questions about that agreement, if you click this link, it will take you to your agreement with Blog Talk Radio about content and making sure that it is original or that you have explicit rights to use it. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to be discussing the number that you want to have your guests call on when you are going to do an interview. Now you were looking at the Blog Talk Radio studio, and there is no episode scheduled right now, but what you'll see here is that there is a guest call-in number. This is the number that you want to give your guests ahead of time to call in order to be in line in order to talk to you. The host call-in number naturally is the one that you are going to call in on, but this is a persistent number, and you will probably have this number for the rest of the time that you are using Blog Talk Radio in order to do your show. So if you are using Blog Talk Radio primarily to record your interview, and that you are not going to use it as a live radio show, you'll just want to be concerned with recording your interview. You will not want to use the promotion, because what you're going to do is you're going to do your episode and then you are going to download that episode, edit it, and then re-upload it. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to take note of is that there is a chat area. Once again, you are not going to use this because you are going to be using Blog Talk Radio primarily for your podcast. So it'll be between you and your guests to have a conversation that you're going to want to make sure is a good one and that you will be using for your audio. And you'll see why this number is important as we start contacting our guests and getting them ready for our show. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we want to discuss what's going to happen when you have a guest and you're interviewing them and they have stage fright or they freeze and they just can't seem to move on beyond the point. And when your guest freezes, what you're going to obviously have to do is you'll need to do what you can to get them started talking about something that they find familiar and favorable. Now, this typically means that they're going to have to tell a story of some kind, but you want to make sure that it's one that you've already discussed in your setup call. Once again, you do not want there to be any surprises. You want to take them back to something familiar and something that they've thought about, even though you don't want them to sound like they are reading. This means that you're going to have more things to talk about than you actually discuss in your interview. So make sure that you have an abundance of research, that you have an abundance of topics on the table that you can discuss based on where a conversation goes. And when a conversation dies, you want to be able to bring them to tell a story again that is going to be familiar to them. Now, one thing that you can do, even if it's in the middle of the interview, is you want to leave a little space between the mistake and then just stop the interview and remind the guest that, yes, this is being recorded and that you will be able to edit out any of their mistakes. This can relax the guest, it can set them at ease, and then they can then focus on what it is that they are trying to actually say. Now, this is the main point. When you have a guest that'll freeze, one thing that you can actually do is you can refer to a visual. Now, this can be something that both you and the guest actually have, and obviously you're going to have to make the description to your audience. You're going to have to put it in the notes. But getting your guest to focus on a visual at that particular time that both you and the guest actually have can help them to really focus and get their bearings so that they can begin to talk easily about their expertise. When you actually do this, you're going to want to make note of the time that it actually comes up in the audio. So while the interview is happening, make note of the time and then write down the exact time that this is going to happen in the notes. Make sure to state it up front when people are actually seeing where they're going to click on and listen to the podcast. Again, now this particular visual, if at all possible, you will have set this up and you will have talked about this in the setup call. So this again is not going to be a surprise. This will be something that you will actually go to that you have already discussed. Now, ultimately, this visual is going to give your guests something else to focus on and hopefully will bring them out of stage fright. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Now, obviously, a podcast is typically recorded, but there will be times when you will want to do a live broadcast, and there are some other considerations that you'll want to make when making the separation between your regular podcast, which is recorded, and a live broadcast. And the balance that you're going to have to keep is that when you do a live broadcast, you're going to want to keep your live audience engaged, and at the same time, remembering that your regular audience listens to your podcast. So you're going to want to keep them satisfied with the broadcast also. One thing that you can do for the live audience is to refer as much as possible to visuals. So even though you're not doing a webinar, they're not necessarily going to be watching a video, you can refer to visuals that they can actually look at while they're on the podcast with you. And although you want to keep your live audience entertained, remember, you're probably going to have more guests to listen to the recording just because that is your regular listening audience. They're not used to coming to your live broadcast, so the majority of the people who are going to be tuned in are going to be people listening to that recording. And so you want to try not to reference too many things that require the listeners or the viewers to be present. So again, keeping the balance between the live audience and then those who are going to be listening to the recording. Go out of your way to describe what is happening in the live broadcast. Be descriptive. So if there's something that's going on right now, you'll want to keep in mind that the majority of the people are going to be listening. They're not going to be there live. So if there is something that is going on between you and the guest, something that happened right at the beginning of the call, you do want to be descriptive, remembering that your people are going to be listening after the fact. Now, if you give viewers the opportunity to take advantage of some kind of special offer, remember to make the same offer available for your recording audience. You don't want to make a separation between the two, remembering again that your regular audience is going to be a recorded audience. And in so doing, consider what your goal is. Is your goal to have more overall listeners to the recording? Then again, you don't want to incentivize the live broadcast. You want to incentivize the goal that you actually want to attain, even if you choose to do a live broadcast. Now, if your regular podcast is typically downloaded or recorded, you want to treat this live broadcast as a special event. So don't necessarily treat it as your regular podcast. And one thing you can do is you can consider not placing this special broadcast in the feed for your regular podcast. Just consider making this available to people on your website. This will give the broadcast a feel that this is a special event. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we want to discuss briefly what will happen if you check your studio and you see that there is no guest call-in number. Typically, that is because you have not scheduled a show. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to schedule a show so that you can find the guest call-in number. So what that means you'll need to do is you'll need to come back and to create an episode, and you'll need to make sure it is a broadcast episode. What you want to do is to make sure that when you create this broadcast episode, just create it sometime in the near future, and then you can actually go back and delete that episode once you see the number appear in your studio area. And you can delete that episode by coming to the episode area of your dashboard, clicking the link, and then clicking the delete button, and then that episode will no longer be there, but your number will be inside of your studio that you can then start passing on to the people that you are going to interview. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to talk about your actual live episode. Now you'll notice that there is an episode that is already scheduled, and you'll notice that on the switchboard there is a caller, and this in this particular case will be our interviewee. So the person who's actually going to be interviewed, they are going to be using the number that you have given them. Now one thing that you'll want to be aware of is that if someone sees the show and they see that it is something that they want to listen in on, they may call in on this number also. So you'll want to make sure that you know what your guest number is going to be here in the left side corner. Now you'll notice that there is a certain amount of time that will elapse before the episode starts. And once again, the number that you will need to call in on is going to be in this area that says host call-in number. That'll actually place you on the Blog Talk Radio call. And then once you've actually started the episode, you will then be able to bring this person on by clicking their microphone. Then they'll be on live for you to be able to talk to them live on air or as the recording is being produced. So once you've dialed in and you've entered your host PIN, you will then be ready to start recording with your guest. Blog Talk Radio will do an audio countdown and let you know that your show is ready, or you will be able to start it right away if you know your guest is already there and you're not particularly trying to adhere to a particular live guideline because you are merely recording the call using Blog Talk Radio's features. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. You are looking at Mixergy.com, and Mixergy.com is a rare podcast that actually has a paid component. If you can see here that this is a Go Premium link, you'll note that Mixergy Premium is $49 a month or $399 a year. So this is one way that one entrepreneur has monetized their podcast. Now obviously they've added some other features to the membership, but it is basically centered around a podcast. So the question to consider is whether or not you should make your podcast available for free. And you do want to consider sites like Mixergy and then determine what you actually want your revenue model to be for your podcast. One thing that you want to think about and ask a question about is, does your audience, the people that you're going to be talking to, do they already purchase information? Is there evidence of that? Do you know if they will pay on a regular basis for a membership? So in other words, if you say yes, how do you know that? Are there other memberships providing that kind of information in your particular market, in your particular niche? Does this audience purchase physical products and information? So you need to have evidence of that. You need to have an idea based on something that's already in existence. Now, is this audience that you're targeting, is it one that advertisers would want to be in front of? Because that's another revenue model. So that would be a reason for you to keep your podcast available for free. Now, obviously, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be building an email list with that podcast. What do you intend to do with this email list? Do you feel comfortable selling affiliate offers? Do you feel comfortable selling your own products? If so, how often do you want to do that? Again, all of this will determine how you want to monetize your podcast and whether or not it should be available for free. Obviously, you're going to have more people involved with the podcast if you keep it free. Now, if you want to monetize the content from your podcast, one of the things that you can do and other podcasters have done is they have run the podcast like a business and they eventually sell the entire brand. Now, this does take a few more considerations. It means that you're using the earnings as evidence that there's interest in the subject matter. It also means that you're eventually going to sell your podcast as a business, that you're going to have to run it so that you're not the only voice on the podcast. So these are ways in which you can consider keeping the podcast free or monetizing the content in order to sell the business. Now, obviously, there are other ways to monetize, but you can do this and keep your podcast free depending on what you want your revenue model to be. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we want to give some consideration to how we should schedule our podcast. Now, actually, your audience is going to determine how often your podcast should be. Now, in most cases, society generally runs on a weekly schedule. That is how most entertainment is, and most people are used to being able to watch or listen or look for something on a weekly basis. Now that means then, as soon as possible, you'll want to determine a certain day of the week to have your podcast or to release your podcast or to release the recording. Now you want to have your podcast to be regular, even lining up guest hosts if you can't keep your date for an extended period of time or you can't record for some reason. Now, in some cases, you can run a best of. In other words, you can run some of your past podcasts. You don't want to do that often. You don't want to re-release a recording or you don't want to release something from the past. You want to always have something new being released. Right. Now, for reference, the Eon Fire podcast is run on a daily basis. So there are entrepreneurs who will actually do their podcast on a daily basis. Now, to stay on topic, he'll record them once a week and record 1 week's worth of podcast in one day. Now, in most cases, one person can handle the duties associated with a weekly podcast. Beyond this, though, trying to move to a daily podcast, you will probably need help in order to execute that. So just keep that rule of thumb in mind. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, this video is going to be a little different. You're looking at a screenshot, and what we're actually doing in this video is we're going to play an actual audio of what a Blog Talk Radio call will actually sound like. So listen in.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions, press 2. To speak to customer service, press 3.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Talk Radio.
Okay, this is our live call, and we're going to actually show you a screenshot, which you're looking at here, and we are actually dialing in right now so you can hear what to expect. Now, as you are interviewing your guest, you're going to see on your panel there are going to be 2 numbers there. One's going to be your host, the other one's going to be your guest, and you will need to enable your guest by clicking their red microphone and turning them into the actual broadcast. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just give you a screenshot that you're looking at probably right now as we are doing the audio of what you are going to listen to. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually shut down the audio so that you will hear how you can expect the broadcast to end.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to start the post-processing of our show. And you'll notice that Blog Talk Radio is going to give you the opportunity to promote, but in most cases, you may want to do some editing of that episode. And so we will not be promoting this episode, and we don't want to promote a live broadcast anyway. So we're going to forego this. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to our left side menu, and then we're going to go to our dashboard. Now, Blog Talk Radio will tell us that our episode has successfully uploaded to their system. What we're going to do is we're going to close out of this message, and then we're going to go to the episodes area. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our episode, and we're actually going to download that episode now to our hard drive. And once we've done that, what we're going to do then is we're going to actually delete the live episode, because we don't necessarily want this to be part of the feed that's going to go to iTunes, nor do we want this to be the final version that people hear. So all we're going to do is we're going to go to this checkbox and we're going to click delete. Now, if we think we've made a mistake, Blog Talk Radio will give us the opportunity to undo it. But in this particular case, we're happy with deleting. So now we're going to move on to the editing process. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to talk about when we should be using scripts. Now, we should definitely not use scripts to do our interviews. You should not write out what you're going to say ahead of time. And the main reason for that, of course, is you will actually sound like you're reading, and you're going to sound less organic to the audience, and you will sound less like someone that you need to listen to. There's no urgency, no tonality in your voice. You want to encourage your guests not to use a script also, and this is part of the reason why you don't want to give them too much information about what you're going to ask them. You want to give them a general idea, but you don't want to tell them what you're going to ask and when you're going to ask it, because they will get nervous and then they will have their scripts planned out. They will wait for the question and they will read the answer because they may not be used to talking on a podcast. So again, you want to encourage your guests not to use a script. Anything routine that you're doing on your show, such as sponsor announcements, you might need a script, but you want to not sound like you're reading. So you want to get it to the point where either you know it, that you've memorized it, but you definitely don't want it to sound like you're reading it. Now, in most cases, you can try to use an outline if you've got to read a script or you've got to do a sponsor announcement. And you want to have it so that you have the freedom to make changes based on the context. So you can actually go through the content. You want to get the main point across. You want the sponsor to be satisfied, but you want to do it so that, again, it sounds organic. It sounds like something that your listeners want to hear. Now, anything that you're doing in terms of written contact, and you've actually seen that throughout this course, you should be following a basic script. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be married to the exact information, but you do need to follow the basic form of a script. And so you want to not deviate from that script, because you will then be able to easily add on staff as your podcast grows. So in other words, if someone that you have on your staff or someone who is helping you helps you to get guests, helps you to follow up, you want them to follow that script. But if you lose that person for some reason, or that person moves on, you want to be able to add on someone else, and you want to give them the basic format that they can follow. Now, if you have to create any new process, you have to take time to write it out in your podcast, because more than likely, as you do get help, you will have talented people to help you, and they will make all the difference in the world as you're doing your podcast. But you must count on losing those people. So it's unlikely that someone who's really good and really talented, they're going to stay with you forever, helping you on your podcast. So don't rely on the fact that they know it by memory. You want to get them written down, and you want to get them ready so that you can pass them on to another person if that person leaves. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to edit in some music for the beginning and end of our video. And you can use your favorite audio editor. Now, you were looking at Camtasia Studio. You can also do this with Audacity, which is free. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to import the audio that you just downloaded, which was your podcast. And once you've downloaded the audio, you'll want to pull it onto the timeline, and this will apply to any audio editing software that you're using. There will be a timeline. You want to add that audio to the timeline where this is going to be your discussion with your interviewee, and you'll see that there will be peaks and valleys, and that is the rise and fall of the voice that you're hearing between the two speakers. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in audio to the beginning and end to give it a more professional feel. So what you'll notice is that we've imported in a music clip that's going to last about 10 seconds. We're going to add that to our timeline. And all we're going to do is to move that audio to right after the audio. We'll fade in the clip. So we will fade out and fade in the clip and then bring in the audio. Then we're going to do the same thing at the end. So we will move our cursor to the end of the timeline. We will then pull that same clip to the end. And then what we'll do is we'll fade in and fade out the audio. Now that's a very simplistic way of being able to add bumpers to your podcast. Now of course you can have a professionally created beginning and end to your podcast, but in the end it's still going to be an MP3 file which you will bring onto your timeline at the beginning and bring onto your timeline at the end. And then what you're going to want to do is to reprocess the audio. So you can, in your favorite audio editing software, reprocess the audio either as a WAV file or as an MP3 file. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to now take the episode that we just recreated and we're going to upload it to Blog Talk Radio to be part of our podcast. And to do that, we're going to come back to our dashboard. We're going to click Create, and then we're going to click Upload. We're going to give our podcast a date, and then we'll give it a title, pitch, and description. Now once we do that, we'll notice that there are some advanced options available. And one of the things that we can do with this particular podcast is we can actually add in a slideshow. We can also add in startup audio. Now in this particular case, we've actually already added in audio. So we will not need to use startup audio in this particular case. But what we can do is we can enhance the experience for people who are going to be listening to the episode on the Blog Talk Radio Network. And by doing that, we can add in images. So we can choose the number of files that we want to upload. So now, once we have our slideshow enabled, we are then going to use our promotion, because now that we're going to eventually connect this episode, which is edited, to iTunes, we now are free to promote it because it actually sounds the way we want it to sound. And then before we click Create Episode, what we'll need to do is we'll need to select the file and then import it into Blog Talk Radio by clicking this button. Now once again, to note, this feature is going to be one of the features that you'll need to have one of the premium accounts in order to implement. So if you're in the trial of the $39.99 or $249 area, you can actually use this feature where you can re-upload an episode. So of course, once you have selected the file, you can then click the Create Episode button. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. You are now looking at GoToWebinar, and it's one of many webinar systems. And the reason GoToWebinar and other systems need to be discussed in this context is you will always have situations where either Skype or your recording software will not work. And your webinar system is a great way of being able to capture a conversation and to produce a video that you will eventually be able to edit. You can also capture a conversation using YouTube Live using the Hangouts feature. And all you'll need to do is to click the invite button, and then that will invite the person to the actual Hangout so that you can have conversation with them, and you'll be able to capture the audio as well as the video. Once you've produced your MP4 video, all you'll need to do is to go to your favorite video editing software, and then you'll need to import that MP4 video into the software. But once you have that MP4 in your software, you'll want to add it to the timeline, and then you'll want to go through the process, whatever your editor actually does, in order to separate the video from the audio. Now, we're now working inside of Camtasia Studio, and in this case, the process is that you would go to the timeline, you would right-click it and separate the video from the audio. And then, of course, you'll take out the video, and you'll have the audio left. You'll then need to process this to be an MP3 or WAV file. And you'll see here that that is how this is being processed. So when we create the audio, we will then have our MP3 that we can then use inside of our Blog Talk Radio, or we'll be able to then add in bumpers so that we'll have a complete podcast episode. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Once you have several episodes that represent the best of your content, you'll then want to look to submit your podcast to iTunes, and you are looking at the URL that you will actually need. You'll need to have your show name, and then you'll need to put / at the end of it after Blog Talk Radio. So your URL will look something like this: blogtalkradio.com. Then this will be your show name, however it appears in your URL, and then you'll have the word podcast. And when we mention your show name here, this should actually be the show name as it appears in your URL. And let's go back to take a look where you'll find that URL again. Now, if you go back to your profile, you should have already created your show URL, and it will appear with the name that you have placed there. And that is the name that you will actually be using in the URL that you're going to be submitting to iTunes. So once you've copied this entire URL, you're then ready to go to iTunes. You'll then want to go to the iTunes store, and you'll want to make sure that podcasts are selected here. Once podcasts are selected, then you'll need to click Submit a Podcast. You'll then be brought to a validation screen, and you'll want to place that URL in this box, and then you'll want to click Validate. And once your podcast has been validated with episodes, you'll then want to click Submit. Once you do that, then iTunes is going to go through an approval process, and you'll typically have to wait between 2 and 3 days to find out if your podcast has been accepted. If it takes longer than that, then there is no need to worry. They do have your podcast. You'll then want to make sure that you're just watching the email that's associated with your iTunes account. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to start the process of repurposing your podcast. And you'll notice that we are inside of a video editing program, which is called Camtasia Studio. You can use your favorite video editing program or even Windows Movie Maker. Now what you'll want to do first is you'll want to import the audio into your video editing software. Now that we have the software, what we'll want to do is we will want to then add it to the timeline. Once we've added that MP3 or WAV file to the timeline, what we can do is we can actually turn this into a video by adding in either a series of photos or one photo that we can stretch all the way to the end of the timeline. Now for the sake of this video, we're just going to grab an image and we're going to place it on the timeline and drag it to the end. Okay, so you'll notice now we have an image that we have imported. We're going to add it to the timeline. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to drag this photo all the way to the end of the timeline. Now what's going to happen now is that we are going to reproduce this MP3 and this image as an entire video, which we can then use on youtube.com. On Camtasia Studio, what we would do is we would produce and share this video as an MP4 video. And all we need to do is to go to the next step, and then we'd need to click Finish. Now another way to turn your audio into content is to have the audio transcribed, and you can use a service like rev.com, or you can use a service like SpeechPad. Either one of these services will take your audio and turn it into text so that you can actually then begin to use it in your blog or in some of your other written content. Now there are software solutions such as Dragon Naturally Speaking, which will take your audio file and do the best it can at translating the audio. It will typically need some additional work in order to turn it into a written document, but this is a way for you to automate the process and for you to save the expense of having your document transcribed. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now in youtube.com, and you'll notice that we are inside of the channel area, and you'll notice that there are some areas that you can enable your channel that will help you to be able to promote your podcast. Now in this particular case, you will want to have external annotations enabled. This will allow you to add links to your videos that will directly link to your iTunes podcast. Now in order to use your annotations, you'll need to go to the end screen and annotations, and you can actually add in an element. You'll want to then add in a link to an approved website. Now what you'll notice is that when you come to this link URL, you'll be able to put in an iTunes URL for a podcast. So let's do that right now. So we've grabbed a URL for an iTunes podcast, and we're just going to add that URL right into the link URL. And what you'll notice is that you will then be able to go to the next screen. Now you may be required to adhere to a character limit. Once you've done that, then you'll need to select the call to action. Now YouTube specifically allows you to link to iTunes, and so this is where you will have an advantage being able to have your channel enabled for all of the features inside of external annotations. You can do the same thing with YouTube cards. You can actually add a YouTube card if you are enabled for external annotations where you can actually link to your iTunes podcast. And you'll see that you'll have a call to action and teaser text. You can then create the card. You will then be able to determine where the card actually appears in the video, and you can actually drag and drop that element inside of your video. And you can do this any number of times inside of a video, and it's a great way of being able to get people to see what you are actually talking about in your podcast, and they can actually get access to it. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about promoting your podcast across the Blog Talk Radio network. You're going to notice that as soon as your podcast or your recording ends, if you were doing a live broadcast, what you could do is you could check this box, and you would then be able to get more exposure to your podcast across the Blog Talk Radio network. Now, if you are not going with the initial recording, then this is not something that you are going to want to do. There are some other options, though, inside of Blog Talk Radio. You are given the opportunity to send out to people in your address book this is something that you'll want to be careful of because you don't want to have your email blocked or considered to be spam. So only use this sparingly and only if you feel as if it's absolutely necessary. Now, Blog Talk Radio also gives you the opportunity to have your show featured, and you can actually submit your show to be considered. And you'll see some other shows that'll be here in the margin and other places around Blog Talk Radio. And this is a great way of being able to have exposure to other people on the network who are actually listening to podcasts. So you can select the show that you want to have considered, and then you can then write in why you think it should be. And you can submit this to Blog Talk Radio, and you can do so once a day. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to talk about two more elements in the dashboard. The first you'll see is a statistical reading of how your podcast is doing. You'll be able to look at people who are downloading as well as streaming, as well as where they're listening from. You'll also get demographics as to where they live, and this can be helpful information, in particular if your podcast is geography specific. Blog Talk Radio will also report to you about monetization, and it'll tell you how much you're earning for a particular period of time. Now, you will be able to see this based on the activity, and if you want to go into more detail, you can actually click this arrow, and Blog Talk Radio will give you all of the information that you'll need and how it was determined to get to the monetization that you are earning. So by using the statistical information here in the stats area, that'll give you an idea of how well you are doing in order to monetize if you're looking to monetize from the network. In some cases, you may be looking for a sponsor for your show, but this can be a stream of income if you decide to do what you can to send lots of traffic to your show. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to talk about how you can use the tools in Blog Talk Radio to promote your podcast on your website. Now you do have tools, obviously, with iTunes, but in this case, we want to talk about the tools that you have with Blog Talk Radio. And you'll notice that with this particular channel, on the channel page, if you go to this button, you'll see that the message there says that you can embed a player for this channel. So all you'll want to do is to click this embed code or the embed code for your channel, and then you'll get the entire iframe. You'll copy it, and then you'll go to your website. When you find a place where you can place some HTML, such as your WordPress site, you can place that code inside of the area and then click Publish. And then you'll see on the page that you'll have several episodes inside of a player created by Blog Talk Radio. And you can actually do the same thing with individual episodes. For example, if we were to click into this episode, we're going to stop this so that we don't have to listen to it. And when you get to this individual page, you're going to notice that there is a button here that says embed this episode. So all we'll need to do is to click that link, and we'll be able to take this player for the single episode, copy it, and then we'll be able to move back to our site. And we'll now place the code here in this box. We'll replace the code for the multiple player with the single player. We'll click update, and now we'll view our post. And now you'll notice that there is a single player instead of the player with several episodes. So this is another way for you to be able to promote your podcast on your site using the tools given to you by Blog Talk Radio. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video.